So after suffering a brutal knockout loss to his longtime rival and the current undisputed middleweight champion Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira is testing his luck in the light heavyweight division against former champion Jan Blachowicz. Pereira was a big middleweight. You will see him turn up on the scale looking big, but also not drained, which is interesting. However, on the day of the fight, against guys like Izzy and Strickland, he looks noticeably bigger. He looks massive. So it was only right that at some point, he would move up to 205. He's never really had any issues making weight, but Pereira's not getting any younger. This guy is 36 years old. As you get older, that weight cut tends to get a little more rough as we go. So the transition from middleweight to light heavyweight should take less toll on his body. However, I am concerned about Pereira moving up to 205 for certain reasons. The first one is that I believe he's too eager to get back into the cage. I believe he's returning a little too soon since his last fight. His last fight against Izzy at 185 was one of the best moments in UFC history for everyone in the world besides himself and Izzy's haters. He got knocked out in a very brutal way. He got hit right by his ear, and that's actually a very dangerous place to get hit at. The equilibrium is located there, and once Pereira got hit there, it was lights out. He was also out for about a minute. The way he fell where he banged the back of his head on the ground is terrible for his brain. Not to mention, Izzy targeted that exact same spot in the first fight and busted his eardrum. I'm not saying it's a certainty that Pereira will come back and not be the same, but it's a possibility. Some guys, when they get finished in a certain way, they never come back the same. They just don't. And again, if you look at the way that Pereira got finished, I mean, it's a dangerous way for him to go out. But now that he's at 205, where the guys that he's fighting are much bigger, luckily for him, he doesn't have to lose as much weight to the point where it affects his durability. So we'll see what happens with that. Secondly, I thought Pereira could have potentially pushed for a third Izzy fight. Even though I personally don't believe he deserves a third fight, I still think there are some matchups at 185 that are still exciting for him. If he would have racked up a good win or two in the top 5, potentially there could have been a third fight. However, in the first Izzy fight, it's no secret that we discovered that Pereira has major deficiencies in his grappling. Izzy is in no way, shape, or form considered a world-class grappler in MMA whatsoever, but he was able to have a lot of success on the ground against Pereira. People were saying Bo Nickel has a shot to beat Pereira if he can just land one takedown. And bro, to put matters even worse, even Dylan Dennis was able to land a takedown on Pereira in a training clip. But the bottom line is that his grappling is nowhere near his striking. He is training with Glover Teixeira, but it seems like his grappling is still not there yet. So if he's having trouble grappling against a natural 185er who's primarily a striker, then I do not know how he's going to deal against guys that are natural 205ers. These guys are much bigger and stronger, and they can potentially cause Pereira problems when it comes to grappling. These guys aren't dumb. We know why Pereira is dangerous. There will be certain fighters who aren't going to be content with just striking against Pereira. They're going to straight dive for his legs and try to maul him. So I just would have liked to see a bit more of him grappling at 185 before moving up to 205. I don't know why, but I'm getting a feeling that Pereira's grappling isn't actually as bad as what he displayed in the Izzy fight. Overall, I just have so many unanswered questions about it. So the last time we saw Jan Blachowicz in the cage, he was a part of a split draw against Magomed Ankalaev. It was a close fight and Jan had a pretty rough ending to that fight. However, he displayed that he's still a great fighter in this division. Despite him losing back-to-back title fights, he's still a top 5 fighter easily. So if we take a look at Jan when he fought Izzy back at UFC 259, where Izzy tried to become double champ, Jan was able to beat Izzy. But if we take a deeper look at how he beat Izzy, most people would say that Jan used his wrestling to hold Izzy down. I would personally disagree and say that it was more of a well-rounded performance in my eyes. Yes, he didn't start wrestling until later in the fight, but he was able to hold his own very well against Izzy on the stand-up. Jan was able to win a lot of great striking exchanges against Izzy, but the difference in the grappling department was huge. Even when they both locked up, you can see that Jan was the much bigger fighter compared to Izzy. Izzy is a striker and his grappling isn't good enough compared to his striking. Add the size disadvantage and it became a lot tougher for him against Jan. So if we look at that fight, it's normal for us to believe that Jan can do the same thing to Pereira. The narrative is the same. Pereira is a striker and his grappling is a clear weakness. So surely Jan would look to exploit that, right? Well, I guess not, because Jan has made comments about how he would like to try and engage in a striking match with Pereira. Yes, you heard that right. Jan Blachowicz wants to have a kickboxing match with Pereira, the former double glory kickboxing champ. I mean, talk about a facepalm. Jan has stated that he's a stand-up fighter and he's not wrong. He is. But the issue here is that you're fighting Alex Pereira, who has better striking than you, and you have better grappling than him. So why are you purposely trying to make the fight harder for yourself, just because you want to stay true to your fighting style? I never understood this idea because some fighters have had the same idea in the past. They're clearly capable of winning the fight in a different way, but they choose not to because they want to win it in the way that they normally win. I mean, if that's the case, then go on and have a pure kickboxing fight then. This is MMA. Jan also said that if something goes wrong, then he'll for sure use his wrestling to neutralize the fight. So at least he has some brain cells, but still I don't get it. Why would you make the best possible path to victory a backup option? It makes no sense to me. Jan said he wanted to test his striking skills with Pereira. For what? Let's not forget that Pereira is probably the hardest puncher in MMA right now. Maybe Pavlovich hits harder, but even though Pereira is going to be taking punches against bigger guys, he's going to be able to dish his own smoke as well. So if Jan chooses to be naive on purpose, then that is just sad because this guy has the potential to be champion again. But because he's a stand-up fighter, he chooses to stand against one of the best strikers in MMA history. So let's discuss a little bit about what both guys do best. So for Mr. Poatan himself, it's obviously his submission skills. He's a former 10-time ADCC champ. He's a 7-time IBJJF pro. He's a 4th degree black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and he's pound for pound the best submission grappler in the game right now. He submitted many of the Gracies and many of... Nah bro, who am I playing bro? Stop playing right now. Fun fact, Pereira actually has a brown belt in Jiu-Jitsu. No clue how. I mean, to quote Islam, we're going to have to check that moment. But anyways, Pereira has some of the best striking in the UFC. He can operate in pretty much any range. Kicking range, boxing range, and inside the clinch. He's got great kicks, great knees, but where he's most dangerous is in that mid/boxing range. In the fight against Izzy where he kept pressuring him into the cage, and Pereira was just able to unload combos and throw punches, and that's where he's most deadly. You can easily make mistakes when you're in that range, or even worse, panic. And when one of those two things happen, you already know Pereira has that touch of death. The longer you stay there, the worse it is for you. Because if you ever watch Pereira hit pads, he's always throwing combos moving forward, but he's also moving his head from side to side. When he slips, he looks to counter, but not just with one shot, he counters in combos. This is what he does in his training and in his kickboxing days. But he can get caught as well. As much as it serves him in the right direction, it can also burn him for reasons that we'll discuss later on. Secondly, his left hook is a thing of beauty. His elbows are always tight, so when he throws a lead hook, there's usually less telegraph, and he knows how to set it up as well. This leads me to my third point, his fight IQ. Pereira was constantly circling to his left and kept throwing up left body kicks and jabs to the body. Doing this, he was able to free up space for Strickland to bite on a body feint, and he was able to come over the top with a beautiful left hook right on the chin. Everything that he's doing, he's calculating his next move. Fourthly, let's talk about his kicks. Pereira has some of the best calf kicks in MMA. He gave Izzy a world of problems with that kick. He doesn't throw his leg kicks in a traditional Muay Thai way where you turn the hip. It's more of a Dutch kickboxing technique where you'll sit down on it, but you won't turn your hip over. And that goes for any of his other kicks as well. When he throws body kicks, it's not really a powerful kick. It's more of a snapping kick. In that way, it eliminates all telegraphs. However, because Poatan has heavy hands, and which I also assume legs as well, he can touch you with those kicks and inflict great damage with them. So for Jan Blachowicz, what are his strengths? Straight away, it's his experience in MMA as a whole, but his experience in the light heavyweight division. He has fought in this division longer than Pereira. He should know what it feels like to compete here. He's faced Glover, Ankalaev, Dominic Reyes, Corey Anderson, and much more. He's faced these elite fighters before Pereira. Secondly, just like Pereira, Jan also has good leg kicks. In the Ankalaev fight, he was landing hard leg kicks that hurt Ankalaev. But unlike Pereira, Jan's leg kicks are different in terms of turning his hips over. On top of that, Jan's leg kicks have less speed, but he'll go shin to shin with you. Instead of going shin to muscle, he'll go shin to shin. And immediately that sounds crazy because no one wants to go shin to shin because of the risk of breaking your shins. But I guess Jan is just built differently with how dense his shins are. Even if you check with your shins, because the shins are harder, it'll probably hurt you a lot more. Thirdly, Jan has good wrestling skills. I wouldn't consider Jan an all-around fighter because I don't think he has elite grappling. However, it's good enough to pose a threat to different guys, and one of those guys being Alex Pereira. I believe he has a judo background, and the way he sets up his entries allows him to be successful in converting his takedowns. He has good ground control to maintain positions and inflicts damage or looks for submissions. Lastly, Jan has crafty striking and power as well. He's not as versatile as Pereira in my opinion, but he can set things up and land powerful combos that can finish you at any moment. He has a great jab, he uses it very well. He can land it up top, he can go down to the body. He's got great left kicks to the body and the head. He's had finishes throughout his career where his striking prowess and power have been on full display. He's also very explosive as well. Whenever he throws those straight punches, he throws them with a lot of explosion. In order for Pereira to win, I think he has to start fast by pressuring Jan into the cage early and maintaining that boxing range where he can set up punches. If he can establish his power and dominance early and get his respect, then the fight will go exactly like how he intended to. Again, when you're in that range, it's very dangerous to give Pereira that kind of opportunity to work, because he will put boxing combos together. Secondly, I believe Pereira needs to do what he did in the Strickland fight, which is circling around the cage to avoid being up against the fence. If he's up against the fence, Jan will have an easier time setting up entries, and at that point, that's going to slow down Pereira's rhythm and his cardio as well. He's got to keep the fight in the center and use kicks to maintain distance, or he has to be on the front foot. But there is a big probability that Pereira could be up against the cage. At that point, you got to be able to show some type of takedown defense. If you provide such little resistance, then it's going to be wraps. Lastly, don't rush on every single exchange. Instead, shot select, because Pereira has a deep bag in his striking game. If he's able to stay calm, pick his shots, and control the pace, then he'll be very successful throughout the fight. Try to look for counters if Jan throws single punches. He drills them during training, and he has landed them during the fight. But if he gets overzealous like how he did in the Izzy fight, there's a chance that Jan could catch him in between his offense because Pereira is hittable. He does not have superior striking defense. Bonus key for Pereira is if he can secure a tie clinch, make sure to throw knees to stop Jan from trying to advance and level change to his legs. Attack the body with those jabs, force his hands to drop, and come over the top. For Jan to win the fight, he's got to wrestle early and often throughout the fight. This is a 3-round fight, not to mention, we're in Salt Lake City for this fight. And the last time the UFC did a show in Salt Lake City, everybody was moving like Dricus du Plessis before he got nose surgery. Based on Pereira's first fight against Izzy, he doesn't have great cardio for MMA. If you can land takedowns, then you can drain his gas tank early. Then after that, you can hopefully blow some steam off of the striking from Pereira. Even if you don't land the takedown, if you can hold him up against the fence, then you'll be solid. If you get Pereira to back up in a straight line where he's pulling his head out and dropping his hands way outside, run the pipe because he could load up for a big counter shot. Again, you see the pad work with him and his team. If you give him opportunities, he'll land it. If Pereira comes forward with single punches, move and counter, or try to close distance and secure body locks. Secondly, attack straight down the middle. If you watch enough of Pereira's fights, you can see the biggest thing that Pereira struggles with. When Pereira gets hit, what does he usually get hit with? Straight punches, that's what it is. Pereira's weakness is getting hit straight down the line. When he pulls his head out of range and doesn't have his legs set, he's hittable. But if his legs are set, then it could be a different story. Izzy was able to have the most success against Pereira by strictly attacking with straight punches and teeps. If Pereira is chipping with those leg kicks, you can time a straight punch in between. Lastly, do not trade punches with Pereira. A lot of times, if you pay attention in his Glory kickboxing fights, a lot of guys will look to trade against Pereira, but many of them get slept doing that. Instead, Jan needs to feint and set up his strikes. Pereira has a real legitimate issue of pulling his hands out and exposing his chin. His footwork is not so great. It's not like he's stepping back to step out of range. He literally pulls his head and his hands out of range. Pay attention to that when he fights. Do your homework and you'll see what I'm talking about. So stay patient, use feints, leg kicks, and body shots to draw openings and footwork to avoid taking damage. And at that point, if you start finding success, mix in level changes. Bonus key for Jan is that he has to defend kicks in the center of the octagon. That is what Pereira is going to do. Jan was defending kicks very well against Izzy, almost in a risky way. Bro stood on one leg and defended both the head and the body at the exact same time. But the point is, he has great eyes when the fight is in the kicking range at the center of the octagon. So for my official prediction, I got Pereira by a close decision. I'm leaning 55% Pereira and 45% Jan. I think if Jan sticks to a good game plan, then he'll beat Pereira. He can easily win this fight if he goes in there and do what he's supposed to do, not what he wants to do. What he did to Izzy, he can do to Pereira. Instead, it feels like Jan has a bit of an ego. He wants to quote unquote test his striking because he's a striker. Welp, by all means, go ahead and try, but you better hope that you're going to be on the right side of this decision. Jan has also been caught by clean left hooks in the past. If you look at his previous fights, you can see it. If he's not careful, he can get knocked out, but I believe he can address it. He did say that if something does go wrong, he'll wrestle, but again, I don't think that should be the mindset. He can have that type of mindset and fight like that against Izzy because Izzy will not put him out with one shot. But you know who will? The guy who literally has stone hands as his nickname. I think Jan can hold his own against Pereira on the feet, but he won't win fighting that way, or it will be too close, or it could be lights out for him, because again, Pereira can put him out. But I'm telling y'all right now, everybody is happy and excited for Pereira's debut at light heavyweight, and I'm not going to lie, I am a bit intrigued as well. But at the same time, I'm sitting here biting my fingernails because I'm telling you, Pereira can be less effective in this weight class, especially after his last fight, because I'm concerned for his durability. I'm concerned for his grappling, and I'm also concerned about whether or not he can look great against the best guys in this division. And that is it, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to what I have to say, and let me know, who do you have winning this Saturday? Jan Blachowicz or Alex Pereira? Drop a comment and let me know in the comment section down below. Now, if you guys enjoy content that is related to combat sports, please drop a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel down below. That would be greatly appreciated. Please follow me on my Twitter to see all of my latest tweets about combat sports. And other than that, it's been Steven, signing out. Peace!